Right guys, so welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be going over the perfect rowing technique. And rowing is, I mean the rowing machine, so the Concept 2 rower. One of the things that I've sort of been experiencing over this last week, so I've sort of started my new sort of role and been sort of bedding in at the new gym, and it's been a bit of a change in terms of what I've been doing maybe over the last sort of 8-9 years. So last 8-9 years I've worked primarily in small groups, so 5-6 people, and then really one-to-one was kind of how I worked. And now transitioning with the gym that I'm working at do large classes, so you're looking at 20 up to 40 people, right? Which obviously comes with its unique challenges. It gives us a bit more of a diverse range of people, different levels of fitness, and obviously different levels of technical ability in terms of these certain movements, whether that's deadlifts, squats, rowing, you know. So one of the things I wanted to do with these videos is really kind of go back to basics. I think I've been in the industry now for 15 years, and you know, it can kind of sometimes feel like it shouldn't need to be covered, but actually what you realize is that for some people, when they're starting out their fitness journey, going over the basics and really refining the basics is where you're going to get the most success and the most gains early on, right? Because it's not just about pure effort. It's how efficient can we become at the move, regardless of what you're doing, whether you're running, sprinting, jumping, lifting weights, rowing. The goal is to build a strong and efficient technical model, right? And then to have that replicated over longer and longer periods of time, because fatigue changes everything. And the moment we get fatigued, and we see this in classes when people go full tilt on a 500 meters, you see technical breakdown quite early on, right? Because they haven't built the strong technique to allow them to perform that whilst performing that strong pace. So they just slip back into what feels natural to them. But the problem is that everything has a cost of doing business. So if you're going to perform 500 meters, 1,000 meter row with poor technique, then you're going to find yourself stumbling into roadblocks that maybe cause you some niggles, some pain, because you're not being efficient with the movement. So when I was thinking about doing this video, I went onto the National Strength and Conditioning Association journal and just sort of looked at what their definition was for biomechanically efficient rowing technique, and I think they summed it up better than either I could have worded it. And this is what it says. This is what they get. The rowing stroke is a coordinated muscle action that requires repetitive, maximum yet smooth application of force. Now that kind of just perfectly sums it up, right? That is the goal of rowing. What we are looking for, and I've preached about this in whether it's running, sprinting, rhythm, timing, coordination. Everything we do, regardless whether that's a deadlift, whether that's a squat, whether that's running, whether that's sprinting, requires all three of them. It's a skill. And if you learn how to perform that skill and then replicate it through practice, you become better at it. And then when you become better at it, your form holds up against fatigue, which is ultimately what fitness is. Our ability to maintain postures and positions under fatigue. And obviously the amount of fatigue you need to be able to maintain that against goes on what sport you want to do. So if you want to run a marathon in sub 4 hours, well then you need to be able to maintain good running form for 4 hours. Right? If you're just doing 10Ks, you're probably looking at an hour, 40 minutes, you know, so it's understanding that the sport dictates what it is you want to do. And if you're trying to build endurance, then you need to be able to elongate the amount of time that you spend with perfect replication of form. Because if all that happens over the course of 20-30 minutes is that your form just deteriorates, well now under fatigue you are now performing the worst reps, and that is just, in my opinion, a recipe for disaster. So it's always good to go back to basics, to refresh your mind in terms of what it means to have an efficient, biomechanically sound rowing form, and that generally requires 4 main bits, okay? So as I kind of let this play out in the background of me going through the rowing sequence, you can automatically see that there is a rhythm, timing, and coordination to it, right? There's a sequence to the movement. And the first part of the rowing technique is the catch. So that is when you're on straight arms, you're squatted in, your heels are up, and you're at the very beginning of the movement, and you hit the weight. That's the catch. You're catching the load of the machine, or if you're in the water, the resistance of the water. That is your key to start your leg drive, right? A strong and powerful leg drive. Utilizing the legs to initiate the movement. Once we've got the legs to length, we then want a body drive where our shoulders move behind our hips, and then we finish that with a strong and powerful arm drive to bring that sort of handle right into the chest, okay? From there, we straighten the arms, then we squat back in to bring us back into that sequence of a movement. Now, when you look at this movement, it's a coordination, much like a power clean or Olympic weightlifts. You see it's leg drive into upper body drive, release the arms, release the legs, and repeat that movement, right? Now, this is something that needs to be practiced, and when you're gonna practice it, take the resistance down on the rower and just practice going through that sequence. Practice doing that for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Then what you'll find is that when you do take the handbrake off and you go 500 meters or 1,000 meters or 2,000 meters if you're bold, all out to see what you can do, you're going to have built and developed a strong and robust biomechanically efficient technique, that is going to mean that you get the most out of the exercise and the exercise doesn't get the most out of you. Because I believe that that is the most important thing, again, regardless of whether you're deadlifting, squatting, Olympic weightlifting, jumping, sprinting, rowing, you want to make sure that you're getting the most out of the exercise and the exercise isn't getting the most out of you. So hopefully you found this video useful. Maybe for some of you it's sort of going back to basics, but I always think it's good to sort of brush up on the foundations. You know, even if you know this and you're really efficient at it, it's nice to have that confirmed. If some of this has been like, I'd never thought about it like that, go and practice. You know, this is something that we can always get better at, and I think that ultimately everything I talk about is about improving ourselves. So looking for things that we might not be great at and saying, right, I'm gonna work on that, I'm gonna get better at that. And that requires being humble, as I've spoken about before, and maybe sometimes sacrificing your ego a little bit to say, right, I need to go back and rebuild and go through these basics. Because then ultimately, if you adopt that white belt mentality and you everything you look at in the gym is with no ego and with the eagerness to learn and improve, I mean, that is a recipe for, I mean, limitless potential, right? You can take that as far as you want to take it, and that is ultimately what we're all trying to do, right? What we should all be trying to do, because I think the world deserves the best possible version of ourselves, and the best possible version of ourselves is someone that is always looking to learn, always looking to practice, and doesn't have an ego and is humble. So hopefully you found this video useful. Yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow.